Hi, my name's Kat Ward. I'm delighted to welcome you to yet another instalment in our series, Let's Talk. And once again, I am joined by the very wonderful evolutionary biologist, Dr Mairi Macleod. Mairi, it's great to see you again.
Great to see you too, yeah.
You keeping well?
Yeah, it's all good. Yep.
Good. So, Mairi, we've covered a number of subjects in the last two sessions. We've looked at queen bees, shrinking violets and bonobos, and this time around you're going to tell us a little bit about risk taking and what you learnt from monkeys, which is
Absolutely.
great. So you started your career studying animal behaviour in some remote parts of the world. What sort of risks did you come across when you were out there?
Well, because I was mostly kind of in the tropics, and so there's various nasties to look out for in those places. So in the kind of jungle places I was in, there was lots of pretty nasty snakes and spiders and things that I could have potentially come across. I did see some nasty ones, but thankfully didn't come a cropper at all. I was also studying whales, humpback whales, for a while in Australia, and that was potentially quite dangerous because we were studying animals that are kind of 30 tons heavy and 15 meters long, and we were in a 4-meter inflatable boat. So you can imagine it was slightly concerning sometimes that we might just be flipped out of our boat. I remember one particular instance that did freak me out when I was working in South Africa studying monkeys, and one of the pieces of advice from the parks board there was to look out for hippopotamuses because they're very, very dangerous. And if you come across a hippo, they said, climb a tree as fast as possible. Not a bush, not a sapling, but a tree. And then I found myself in this situation at one point where I was following my troop of monkeys, and it was late afternoon, early evening, and we were near, in a part of the forest, it was near a lake that was full of hippos. But hippos come out of the lake in the evening, and I was sort of crouched in the undergrowth watching the monkeys at one point, and I heard all this like really heavy kind of rampaging through the undergrowth, and I thought, oh no, it's a hippo. And I looked all around me, and I thought, there's only bushes and saplings, there's no trees. There's nothing to climb up. So the rampaging got closer and closer, and then suddenly I saw it. It wasn't a hippo at all. It was a kudu, which is a quite a large antelope, a big heavy antelope, but they went charging past, and I thought, that was a close one.
And didn't those risks ever put you off the work that you were doing?
No, for somehow I didn't really kind of worry about that sort of stuff. I used to just go through the forest with my stick, sort of bringing down all the spiders' webs in front of me so that I wouldn't walk into any. And I figured with things like snakes and that, they would probably get out of my way as long as I sort of clumped around heavily enough. But to be honest, the worries that I had with fieldwork, it was nothing to do with the animals at all or the conditions. It was more the fact that it was a kind of risky career to embark on. There was very little sort of job security, if you like, and not much money. And I suppose I was always really worried that I would come back from a field work and find that there was nothing for me to do. I didn't have any income or anything. So that was my big worry. I suppose it's the same for most people. You have a choice between, do you go for adventure and excitement in your life, or do you sort of go for the security side of things? And I was always one to choose adventure over, it's my heart over my head, probably. But I couldn't have had the amazing experiences that I've had without taking a few risks in that respect. So I don't have any regrets at all.
So your career is quite different now from the days of trekking through jungles and avoiding hippopotami. Do you feel that you're still taking risks in the work that you do?
Yeah, I guess I am, because like probably a lot of people listening, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm doing stuff that's different from anyone else, and that's a risk in itself. You don't know whether it's going to work out. I basically, what I learned from studying animals and then subsequently studying human behavior is that we change our behavior in response to our environment and conditions, and we can change those conditions to change outcomes that we want. And that's basically the kind of premise that I use in my work. So I help women in particular with things like leadership, and also my latest project is to help women over 50 find a partner based on kind of, biological knowledge and science. And, because it's something that no one else is doing, it is a risk, but it's also really exciting, because it works and it's something new. So that's great. And I guess that, a lot of the people listening will be in the same situation, they're taking chances, and it is exciting, but it's also a little bit risky too.
A very entrepreneurial trait. So you're taking risks, and hopefully many in our audience are taking risks, but not all of us do that. Why is that the case, Mairi?
Well, it comes down to personality, and personality is something we're largely born with. We can't kind of change our personalities that much. We can change how we kind of point them and such like, but not the actual personality. And I would guess that, a lot of the people listening will have fairly gutsy personalities that want to take risks to some extent, but still, it may well be that people are kind of holding back a little bit, maybe not sort of jumping into the breach quite as much as they could do. And so they might be holding themselves back. But one thing that really does come out of the science on risk-taking and stuff is the fact that women in general, just on average, are less likely to take risks than men. Obviously there are some, daredevil women out there, but, as an average thing, women are less likely to take risks. And so that could be holding women back in some cases.
So, you talk about, the men are in many cases more likely to take risks. Are they more risk prone, or how would you shape the kind of risks that men are taking compared to?
Yeah, I mean, you see guys taking risks all the time, don't you? When if it might just come to sort of showing off in front of their mates, doing daft things that they're actually quite dangerous potentially, or sort of extreme sports and things like that. Men are more likely to be into that. Or, you just need to look at the statistics on, driving offences, driving too fast or crashing cars and that kind of thing. I think, in terms of insurance, young men particularly are going to be sort of paying more than anyone else, for the very reason that they are more likely to take these risks.
Is there a reason then for a reason why men are more inclined to take these kind of risks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've evolved that way basically. If you think about in ancestral times, men were able to kind of benefit from taking risks and gaining status and dominance over other men, because basically it got them more sex, it got them access to women, and so they were able to have more offspring, and that tendency has sort of come down the generations to men today, who still tend to be more prone to kind of focusing on high status and doing what's necessary to get that, compared with women. I mean, obviously not all men are like that, but on average they're more likely to be. It's a completely different story for women. Women in ancestral times, biologically speaking, they gained from survival and from survival of their children. They weren't going to increase their biological success through having loads and loads of mates, because we can't have lots of children all at once. So for women, the issue was surviving and having their children survive. And so we've evolved to be less risk prone than men, because it hasn't benefited us to take those risks. So it's better to, keep safe and survive, basically.
Yeah. And is this risk aversion, is it holding women back in the workplace, or in entrepreneurship?
I suspect it is. Again, I'd just like to point out that there is loads of variation in both men and women, with lots of overlap. But in general, women are less likely to take risks in the workplace. They're less likely to go for the high risk, high gain jobs, put their head above the parapet kind of thing. It's well known that women tend to hold back from pushing forward their new ideas and things. And so, and in terms of entrepreneurship, of course, it's likely to be the same. So sometimes we do need to kind of get out of our comfort zone and actually take some risks if we actually want, to move forwards with stuff.
So what would you, and this is the series where we talk about what we can do to overcome some of these traits. So what actions can we take as well to just make that less of an imposition on our future success?
Yeah, well, there's lots we can do. We might be sort of naturally more risk averse than men, but that doesn't mean that we can't kind of overcome this. We've also evolved to have big brains that make us able to behave flexibly and actually take conscious decisions to do things, even if they're not comfortable. There are loads of things we can do. I mean, the first thing I would suggest is, whatever it is you're worried about doing, just start small and build up. To give you one of my own examples, I've always been absolutely terrified of public speaking, like petrified. I'd feel as if I was having an out-of-body experience every time I got up in front of people. And it was just horrendous. But I realised that if I wanted to get my message out and get known for what I do, I would have to just bite the bullet and do it. So I started small, first of all. I did small group lectures for Edinburgh Uni. And I found, wow, I survived the experience. The world, did not come to an end. The earth didn't swallow me up. And so gradually I got more and more used to it. I went on to sort of bigger and bigger talks. And then, eventually, I'm making part of my living through public speaking. So, it does work eventually. I mean, one thing actually that I, full disclosure here, I'm terrified of doing things like, Facebook Lives and things like that. And I've realized that I really need to do that to help promote my business in helping women with, dating advice and stuff. So I've kind of undertaken to myself, and I'll say this now so that it'll encourage me to do it. I'm going to do my first Facebook Live in my Dating Evolved Facebook group by the end of next week. so I'm going to jump into the breach there, and I know that it will get easier over time. If I do that, it will get easier. And so that's what I'd suggest to anyone else. Just take those first steps and you'll find it gets easier. And then you'll feel brilliant because you'll be able to do something that always terrified you, and you'll feel fantastic about that.
And I guess we can use that adrenaline that in the past we might have used to deal with bigger risks to help us through those sort of challenges. Any advice on how you deal with that side of things? Fear.
I mean, in the past, we would have had much bigger risks to contend with. So we evolved risk aversion to keep us safe from getting killed by predators or whatever. Back in the day when we lived on the savannah and were hunting and gathering and stuff, we might have got eaten by lions. So that's why we didn't go out and take big risks. But nowadays, the risks we're taking, it's not kind of life or death in the savannah. It's we might. If I make a mess of this interview, for example, it's slightly nerve-wracking doing something live in front of people, but I'm not going to spontaneously combust if I mess it up. It's not the end of the world. So I think we have to try and get some perspective on that. Try and get into proportion. Another thing is that we really worry about having less. Sort of not earning enough money. Like say we have a regular job, but we want to be an entrepreneur and do something much more exciting. We might think, but we might not earn enough money or whatever. But, don't be afraid of having less for a bit. Usually, back in the day, it might have been the difference between having enough to eat and not. But nowadays, it's not usually a life or death situation. We're not usually worried about whether we're going to eat or not. So, we might, a lot of our worries about having less are to do with how we compare to other people. So, if our friends are all wearing designer clothes, we want to have designer clothes as well, and we worry that we have to keep up with everyone else. But think about what's really important. If you're at the beginning of a big adventure where you stand to gain masses if it comes off, then you can put up with having less for a bit. Wearing charity shop clothes for a bit, or whatever, just until you get through that part of it. And
we talked previously about your own experiences of living on a shoestring. Can you tell us a bit about that? What made that worthwhile?
What made it worthwhile? Well, loads of things really, in terms of field work and stuff. I had some amazing experiences, but as you say, it was always on a shoestring. And I can tell you a couple of examples. One was when I went to Australia, and I went out there to study dolphins and humpback whales. I mentioned the humpback whales earlier. And I went out as a volunteer, first of all, before I got a paid job with the University of Sydney. And but I can remember one particular experience that was just unbelievable. Like, I was driving this four-meter inflatable boat while the other researchers were working in the front. And we had one situation where we got sort of a bit becalmed, and we stopped for lunch, had cut the engine, and the sea was really, really calm. And then as we were sitting eating our sandwiches, we saw this great big shape under the water, and it's absolutely massive, and it was a humpback whale, and it went right under us. And I remember sitting there, I said to Pete, one of the guys in the boat, I said, I don't know whether to be absolutely terrified or really excited. Those are both perfectly reasonable emotions to be feeling right now. And then what happened was the whale, it went right under the boat, and then it sort of emerged out of the water. Its whole head, sort of several meters of it, came out of the water just really slowly in a movement that's called spy hopping. And I found myself eye to eye with this humpback whale. It was only like, I don't know, 6 meters away or something like that. It was just the most amazing experience. It was almost like we were looking into each other's faces, It was an incredible experience. So, that made things certainly worth it. I had another experience when I went to Brazil to work in the Amazon, and I was rehabilitating animals that had been rescued from the illegal pet trade there. But also among the animals that I was going out to help look after and rehabilitate was a monkey that had been taken from the UK, from a sanctuary in the UK, out to Brazil. And he was a woolly monkey called Ivan. And I had actually looked after Ivan as a youngster in the sanctuary in the UK. And I hadn't seen him for about a year because I'd been working in London to save up enough money to get to Brazil. And so I was really excited. I thought, I'm going to meet Ivan in the Amazon, on the other side of the world. And I got there. I got to the jungle reserve, and we went out looking for the monkeys and sort of tramped through the jungle for ages and ages along all the trails looking for these monkeys and couldn't find anyone. And eventually, just as we were about to turn back, in fact, Rachel, the woman that I was with, she spotted some monkeys way, way up in the canopy, about 50 meters up. It must have been about that. And I looked up and I couldn't really see, and I couldn't make out who was there or anything. But then I heard this noise, like that, and it's a woolly monkey call. I thought, it's Ivan, and so I called back, and he came down. He started coming down from the tree, and eventually got down to right next to me, and he put out his arm like this so I could groom him like I used to at the monkey sanctuary. And it was just such an amazing experience to actually sort of meet Ivan again on the other side of the world in the jungle. So, that made everything worthwhile. Mm-hmm. But I realised that, most people listening will not have the same kind of aspirations as I had back then. And, I've changed completely now as well. I'm running a business, not following monkeys around the jungle. But, it just strikes me that if you really want to achieve something amazing and have amazing experiences, you're going to need to take a few risks. Absolutely. But it will be worth it.
Follow your passion, take a risk, and move out of your comfort zone. Exactly. So looking at how we can enable that further, we talked in the first vodcast, I should call it, about women supporting each other. So can this also help us with risk taking as well?
Absolutely. We were talking about chimpanzees versus bonobos, weren't we? And how bonobos, the girls get together and support each other so they can outrank the males and lead their group, and in a much better way than chimpanzees seem to. I think we can definitely do that. And if women, can get together usually in small groups, we find that women do best if they have a small number of very close female allies. That sort of contrasts with men who tend to form much bigger, looser coalitions. But I think if you have a few women with your back, then you're going to be able to feel that you can take those risks. So you've got someone to support you, and you've got people that understand your situation and where you're coming from and stuff, and that's really going to help if you're supporting each other like that. Definitely.
Fantastic. We're coming nearly to the end of our chat. The time just goes past so quickly, Mairi. Any final takeaways that you can give our audience, and how they can take more chances, and how to be risk aware to get the best outcomes?
Well, first of all, I would say, remember about, taking small steps out of your comfort zone and, building that up. Secondly, if there's something you're afraid of, think about, does it really matter that much? Would it be really that terrible if things went wrong? Sort of try and calibrate things a bit better. Also, and this is a really powerful one, think about what you've got to lose by not taking a chance. Do you really want to look back in 20 or 30 years' time on a life of security and safety, or do you want to look back on an exciting life full of opportunities taken and brave choices made? Fourthly, find ways to form female alliances, definitely. And number 5, think about the ways your female qualities can help you. And what I would say there is, don't be so worried about being risk averse. Think about it as risk awareness. Men make a lot of bad mistakes sometimes. It's not always good to be taking risks. And so if you can be, really prepared, make sure you've looked at all the contingencies, get other people's experience on whatever it is you're doing, then you're ready to sort of take that jump into the breach with all the kind of background preparation that you need. And so, good luck to everyone in taking the risks and having adventures.
And good luck to you, Mairi, with your next Riskier Facebook Live event. Can't wait to hear how it goes, and we'll have your back. We'll be supporting you. Mairi, once again, it's been So if you're interested in continuing the conversation with Elevator, and you want to find out a little bit more about our Let's Talk programme, which is supported by Royal Bank of Scotland, don't forget to check out our Facebook Let's Talk group. We also have where you also find details of our monthly drop-in coffee and chat sessions, and some of the events that we have coming up in the future. But once again, thank you so much for your time, and be brave.